and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 469, and today's date is September 17th, 2014, and the title of this episode is ISIS Targeting White House for the Next False Flag Event. Now, I've been watching pretty much everything that's been going on, and I am seeing so much propaganda about the Islamic State. They're just bombarding us with it, letting us know that the Islamic State is coming over the border. They're inside the United States in lone wolf groups. They'll be bombing a city. They've been putting out videos which are very high-tech and very movie-like, like coming from Hollywood, and they're just continually doing this, and this is on purpose. They want us to understand and to believe that the Islamic State is coming here to the United States to bomb the United States, and they want everyone to realize who it is. And this is why they're continually keeping this up. This is why you see it in the corporate media, and this is why the government officials are continually reporting this nonstop. And we can see right now across the entire globe of the private Western Central Bank countries, the economies are completely falling apart. I mean, they are moving directly into a depression. Here in the United States, the real economic indicators compared to the manipulated data that the government puts out is completely on either ends of the world right now. It doesn't even make sense when they put this data out anymore. Now, we can see in Europe, they are having a very rough time. A lot of the countries are seeing their debt continually rising, and Fitch right now is warning that Europe could be facing a doom loop. A classic debt deflation feedback loop could ensue among economists that's better known as the doom loop. A total lack of growth and inflation could put huge pressure on national budgets and cripple the ability of governments to assist struggling banks with credit ratings slashed all around. Now, when we see something like this and are saying that governments are going to struggle to assist banks, we now kind of understand why they created the bail-in documents, where they can shut the bank down, go inside the bank, and steal the people's money. I mean, borrow the people's money to help the banks out here. And of course, you know they're going to just take it and give you worthless bank stock, and they're never going to repay this. And they're going to keep the banks pretty much shut down. They'll place capital controls within the country, and we can see that Europe is heading in this direction. Everything is falling apart, and of course, most likely it's going to happen in Europe. It's going to spread to UK, Germany, hit the United States, and this is when everything just starts to fall apart. And of course, Canada, Australia, and other countries are going to be included in this. And what we're seeing is that they're trying to keep the recovery alive. They're trying to convince everyone that don't worry, everything is fine, we're in a recovery, and it's really looking good. And I've been looking around the United States right now in different areas in the Northeast, Southwest, Midwest. Some places are doing better than others, but what I'm generally seeing right now is houses that are selling on the market right now, people are dropping their prices because no one's coming to purchase. I'm seeing houses dropping their prices by $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And this reminds me of 2007, 2008, where the traffic completely dried up and people start getting nervous. We're in September already, and right now what we're seeing is the real estate market is dying. They're trying to pump in the subprime buyers to try to boost it up at the end game here, and I really don't think this is going to work. Most of Americans are tapped out. Those wealthy people already have their homes. Mortgage applications are plunging. Refinancing applications are plunging, and it really doesn't look good. But don't worry, the Homebuilder sentiment soars to 9-year high. Now, how could this be? Well, it's really meaningless right now because, of course, anyone can say, yeah, I feel good about the market. I feel like it's going to get better, and I'm going to continually build these homes, and hopefully someone will come and buy. And when somebody doesn't come and buy, well, that's when things fall apart. Now, if you look back in 2007, 2008, home builder sentiment was soaring once again there. And look what happened during the year of 2008, going from January throughout the entire year. Real estate was completely falling apart and imploding on itself. But the builders were confident, and as soon as we hit October, building came to a standstill. All of a sudden, nobody was building, nobody knew what was going on, and we saw that real estate was down in the dumps because the economy just completely fell apart. We are seeing the same thing now. We're also seeing the same thing that happened back in 2000 with the dot-com bubble. We're seeing that companies that haven't made a dime, and probably most of them will never make any money, have valuations of $10 billion or more. In 2001 and 2009, you just wouldn't go take a job at a company that's burning $4 million a month. Today, everyone does it without thinking. Record S&P 500 masks 47% of NASDAQ, mired in bear market speculation, is running rampant. But just as in 2000, when market breath turned sour, profitless companies died before the rest, and we're going to see the same thing happen once again. We're seeing companies not making money, but it really doesn't matter. The stock market's being pumped up with free money. The banks are pumping it in. They're getting it from the Fed. They need to keep this alive. And of course, what they're doing is they're suppressing gold because they don't want gold to rise. If gold rises, that is an indicator that the dollar is losing value. People scratch their head. They say, hey, wait a minute. Why is gold rising? What is going on here? So they continually push gold down, and they will do this until the bitter end. And you will know when things are breaking apart and gold is bouncing back, because you're going to see gold go up by 100, then it's going to go up by 150, and it's really going to accelerate as time goes on, and they will not be able to keep it down. And of course, the stock market's going to come down. But they want all eyes on the stock market. As long as it's going up, they believe the American people and the rest of the world think that everything is fine. And they use this, and they continually use this to try to convince everyone that this is the indicator for the economy. But actually what it is the last indication that the economy has failed. It's been failing all along. It's been imploding, declining, whatever you like to call it. Once the market comes down, everyone goes, oh, I guess the economy is done. Well, it's been heading in that direction. This is just a big flare that's set off in the sky to let everyone know, yes, the economy collapsed. Now, the Fed is out there, and they're saying it looks pretty good. It looks like everything's holding steady right now, and the Fed is going to end the QE program at the next meeting. They're going to talk about it, and if everything holds, they're going to put a date on exactly when they're going to exit QE. Now, of course, we know they're really not going to exit QE. They're going to use back channels like Belgium or Euroclear to buy the bonds. They're going to continually pump money into the banks, and they'll all do this through back channels, so no one really understands what's going on. Of course, we have to remember the Federal Reserve is private. They really don't have to tell anyone what they're really doing, and they don't want to tell anyone what they're doing, so they'll just do it in all back channel ways, and you'll find out later, oh look, Belgium just bought billions of dollars worth of treasury bonds through Euroclear, and that's how they did it. They're looking to raise the interest rates by next year, and of course they keep putting this off because it really doesn't matter when they say they're going to raise interest rates, because as soon as they do, the entire system comes crashing down. Look what happens when the interest rates go up on mortgages. All of a sudden, applications fall dramatically, refinancing falls dramatically, sales plummet, and we saw this back in 2008 as rates were going up. We saw everything starting to fall apart. So they're just using this to convince you that we're in a recovery, but what they're expecting to happen is this major event, so they don't have to worry about it during this period. They just want you to believe that there is a recovery. Now, as we know, Obama, the U.S. government, the central bankers, they love taking the rights away from the people. They don't want people to have certain rights. Actually, if they can get rid of the Constitution, they would do that altogether here. And now the Obama administration quietly has been forcing new gun buyers to declare their race and ethnicity a policy change that critics say provides little law enforcement value while creating the risk of privacy intrusions and racial profiling. And again, this is against your rights. You do not have to tell anyone what race you are. Just like you're going for a job, you don't have to show anyone that you're Spanish, that you're black, you're white. You don't have to give your religion. And we're seeing right now the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, ATF, in 2012 amended its Form 4473, the transactional record the government requires gun purchasers and sellers to fill out when buying a firearm, to identify buyers as either Hispanic, Latino, or not. Then a buyer must check his or her race: Indian, Asian, Black, Pacific Islander, or white. And we can see this is all going to be going and will be used later on to see who has most of the weapons in the country. And you can see there's other agendas probably along with this, trying to figure out who has what, and they're just trying to keep track, because eventually what they would like to do is pass some type of law that limits your ability to get a weapon or takes away your weapons completely. But of course, they can't come up with that law because the Second Amendment, the rights, this is the law of the land. They cannot write anything that overrides this. This is why they continually come out with thousands upon thousands of laws trying to limit your ability to get weapons, to limit your free speech, to limit your rights about the police searching you. And of course, they can never write anything that gets rid of it completely. It's impossible to do. And this is why they just try to limit it all the time. But again, if you read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they can't even limit it. So all these laws are completely null and void at this time. Okay, now it seems in Venezuela they are on high alert over a mysterious, deadly disease. The deaths of 10 people in the past week of a mysterious disease in several cities in Venezuela, including the capital of Caracas, have caused panic within the population and has promoted doctors to sound the alarm. In its initial stages, the disease presents symptoms of fever and spots on the skin, and then produce large blisters and internal and external bleeding, according to data provided from the College of Physicians. This is where the data came from. Now, we can see that United States central bankers have been using Ebola in the West African nations. A lot of resources have been discovered there. They really want to get the troops into these areas to take control. And Venezuela is one of those countries that they would love to get into and to have a coup d'etat, replace the government there with a puppet government. Venezuela has a lot of oil, pretty much a lot more than Saudi Arabia, and they would love to take control of the country. And it's just very interesting that Ebola is spreading. And we don't know if it's Ebola, but it sounds like Ebola is spreading to those areas where the United States wants to get into. How come it's not in those countries like Jordan, Israel, Egypt, or any of those other places, but only in those areas where the United States wants to go? Now, in Liberia, their largest newspaper, they have an article in there, and it was published, and they're saying it's an outrageous conspiracy theory column arguing that the United States is directly responsible for scientifically engineering the Ebola virus in a bioterrorism lab and ejecting Africans with it through the illusion that it was vaccines. The wildly accusatory article by Dr. Cyril Broderick, a former professor of plant pathology at the University of Liberia's College of Agriculture and Forestry, claims the Ebola virus and HIV are products of the Cold War. Titled Ebola AIDS Manufactured by Western Pharmaceuticals and the U.S. Department of Defense. Broderick also accuses the World Health Organization and Doctors Without Borders of bringing Ebola to Africa through vaccination programs. He asserts, too, that many reports also conclude that the U.S. government has a viral fever bioterrorism research laboratory in Kenema, a town at the epicenter of the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. And like I said before, the United States central bankers seem like they use many different tactics to get to their goal, and this seems like this is one of them: to decimate the economies of West Africa, have the central bank come in, bail them out, put them into a huge amount of debt, bring in military forces, and of course there are 3,000 soldiers headed towards these West African nations. Think about this for a second. What in the world would they need these soldiers for? There are other countries that are sending in doctors, research assistants, and they're not with soldiers here. How is a soldier going to protect themselves against Ebola? You can't shoot it. So why are the soldiers going down there in the first place? And of course, they're using the argument that, they're going to set up a system, they're going to help, and they're going to maintain. Well, guess what? If there's truly an outbreak, bring in those specialists that could really help. Bring them in, set it up. You don't need the soldiers in this area. Chinese, Russia, they're all bringing in help, and it's mainly, actually I'd say almost 99%, is medical staff. That is it. But of course, the United States has a different agenda in these areas. Now, it looks like the Ukrainian parliament has ratified the EU association, but it will not go into effect until December 2015 or 2016. And we can see they also created a law for special status of the southeastern region, where they'll be like independent within Ukraine, and the new law prohibits criminal prosecution and punitive measures against those who took part in the events, where they're protecting those people that they can't be held up for war crimes unless they did something really, really horrific. Now, Poroshenko is doing this, but the rest of Ukraine is not really going along with this. And when I say the rest, I'm talking about the central banker portion. And what we're seeing is that, of course, Ukraine still does not have enough gas reserves to get them through the winter, and this is why they've been siphoning off gas, getting reverse flows from Poland and Slovakia. And Ukraine has about 16.3 billion cubic meters of gas in underground storage facilities as of September 15th. This represents a 14% increase from last year, with a daily reverse flow gas supplies having reached about 32 million cubic meters. Ukraine by November 1st will store about 17.5 of 18 billion cubic meters of gas needed for the country to live through the coming winter. Kiev is hoping to receive about 27 million cubic meters of gas from Slovakia daily to bring the annual flow to about 10 billion cubic meters. Now, they're just trying to bring in as much as they possibly can because they know they do not have enough to get through this winter. And we also know that Yatsenyuk also took about $1 billion, went down to South Africa, and bought coal to help out with the situation. Now, it looks like they are going to build this border wall, which will separate Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian border guards started building a safety belt around highly volatile Donbass districts under militia control. Mobile control stations along the whole perimeter of the divide line. This will be the first line. The second one is a permanent control line. The third one is reinforcements, trenches, support points, and watchtowers. And this is already in progress right now. And it looks like Ukraine is definitely preparing for a new offensive on the east. Ukraine is in kind of a difficult spot. They are making these charges on the East Ukraine republics because they are involved in a very massive restructuring, resupplying, repositioning troops, just like they did in the last ceasefire, to get ready to launch a new offensive as part of their threatening position in the negotiations. And then what we're seeing, Ukraine is telling everyone and bragging to everyone that yes, they are receiving weapons from the NATO countries. They are bringing them in. They are receiving them right now. And the West is still saying, no, we're not giving them anything. And of course, this is all done behind closed doors. It looks like U.S., France, Norway, Germany, Italy, they have all denied that any type of arms are coming into Ukraine. Now, of course, they're doing this through back channels. They don't want anyone to know. We already know there are more troops being added in Ukraine. And, of course, Yatsenyuk is out there, and he told the Defense Ministry on Wednesday to ensure that government forces were on full battle alert during this ceasefire and peace. So we see Poroshenko right now kind of working with Putin, and they are in a ceasefire right now, and the banker is telling everyone to be on battle alert. Russia will not give us peace, so I am asking the defense minister for full battle readiness, and this is coming from Yatsenyuk. But Putin was out there convincing everyone to have a ceasefire, and Yatsenyuk is out there saying that Russia will not give us peace. So it really doesn't make sense on what he's saying, because what he's really saying is they are preparing for something to happen in this area, because the bankers still did not get what they really came there to get. Now, we understand that Obama right now is really pushing the agenda. The corporate media, some government officials are trying to convince us that Obama has all the official capacity as commander-in-chief to wage war on anyone that he wants to wage war on, which is completely untrue. I don't even know why they're continually doing this. I guess there are a lot of people that are still buying into this, but under the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the use of military force, allows an exception when a country acts in self-defense. Under the well-established Caroline Doctrine, the necessity for self-defense must be instant, overwhelming, leaving no choice of means and no moment for deliberation. Well, that hasn't happened. The only problem is, Obama admitted, we have not yet detected specific plotting against our homeland, and he is absolutely right. Nothing has happened here in the United States. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and it doesn't mean it's not going to be carried out by our government officials to convince us that we were attacked, and that's what they're planning on. The only other exceptions to the UN Charter's prohibition on military force is when the Security Council has given its approval, and they have not. Obama said he would chair a meeting of the Council in 2 weeks' time to mobilize the international community. The proposed resolution the Council is slated to adopt will reportedly call on countries to criminalize recruitment and travel of foreign fighters that join extremist military forces and require the sharing of airline passenger information. It will not, however, authorize military force. So he's not going to the Security Council to get any type of military force whatsoever. Obama's war violates the UN Charter, a treaty the United States has ratified, making it part of U.S. law under the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Obama's war also violates the War Powers Resolution, which permits the President to introduce U.S. armed forces into hostilities or imminent hostilities only in 3 situations. And we've discussed this before. First, Congress has declared war. Second, if the United States has been attacked. And third, if the United Nations, through the Security Council, says, yes, we allow you to do this. But none of this has happened whatsoever, and Obama has not asked Congress to authorize a military attack at this time. And of course, United States central bankers are in Iraq. He has notified Congress about this, and this 60-day period actually comes up October 7th, but we don't know if Obama's really going to follow this whatsoever. Now, Obama's trying to use other laws to convince everyone that they have the ability to do and to go into Syria if they want. And he's saying that he is using the authorization for the use of military force that Congress passed in 2001, which President George W. Bush used to invade Afghanistan, but the AUMF only authorized force against individuals, groups, and countries that planned, authorized, committed, or aided the September 11th terrorist attack, and ISIS, that didn't even exist back then, so he really can't use that. He's also relying on the 2002 AUMF, in which Congress authorized the President to use the armed forces as he determines necessary and appropriate to defend the national security of the United States against the continuing threat posed by Iraq, and to enforce all relevant UN Security Council resolutions regarding Iraq. But since that threat and those resolutions were aimed at Saddam Hussein weapons of mass destruction, that also is really not compliant to what is going on right now, so he really cannot use this either. So right now, there is no reason whatsoever and no right or any law that says he can go into Syria, even though everyone's out there saying that, oh, he can do whatever he wants. He really can't. The only way the United States central bankers can get into Syria is if Syria gives permission, which the United States is not working with Syria, so we don't see that happening, or if Syria attacks the United States in some way. And that is what they're trying to maneuver Syria into not doing, but making it look like Syria did in this false flag event. Now it looks like, as we know, the UN peacekeepers have removed themselves from the Golan Heights, and again, this was strategic because right now the Syrian rebel group linked to Al-Qaeda, which is the Free Syrian Army, they're made up of paid mercenaries, one Syrian, the Islamic State, and other terrorist groups that are in this moderate Free Syrian Army group that is supported by Israel, United States, UK, and other Arab nations. They have seized UN weapons, uniforms, and vehicles from peacekeepers in the Golan and set up a zone from which to wage attacks, according to the Syrian United Nations ambassador. Syrian rebels had succeeded in occupying all the Syrian side of the Golan Heights in an area that has been overseen for decades by the UN peacekeeping troops. The terrorists are now using United Nations cars, which hold the emblem of the United Nations forces in the Golan. They are using the uniform of the UNDOF, the weapons of UNDOF, the position of UNDOF to shell on Syrian army as well as the civilians in the villages. So we can see this was a complete setup where they got the UN peacekeepers out of this area. Israel opened it up. The Free Syrian Army is in there right now. It's a complete, it's a passageway up through the southern portion of Syria right now. And we can see this is preparing for war with Syria. Now, the Free Syrian Army is out there saying, we need more no-fly zones from other countries like Israel. Can you impose a no-fly zone? So far, the United States has. Israel is about to, and the United States central bankers have been asking other countries to do the same because they really want to push the war agenda as hard as they possibly can. Now, out in corporate media, like I said before, the United States government, central bankers, corporate media, they're trying to link Syria to chemical weapons, to chlorine gas, and this is their I mean, they're using this to link themselves to the Islamic State, I should say. And this is their whole goal because when this attack comes on the United States, of course we know it's an inside job, it's a false flag event, they need to say, Syria was a part of this. So they're trying to connect all of this. And right now, the corporate media is out there once again saying that, yes, Assad has chemical weapon plants still in his country. He hasn't shown us all of them, and he's been hiding them from basically the United States and the rest of the world and the UN. And we know back in April, Syria used chlorine gas, which is not proven, and most likely it was the rebels once again, because it makes no sense for Assad to use chemical weapons while the UN was in there removing chemical weapons and to do this right in front of them. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And again, according to this agreement, this is all the United States required at the time. So we can see right now they're trying to push this idea. Now, what's very interesting is that they're claiming the Islamic State got their hands on chlorine gas, and it looks like they might have been allegedly using this chlorine gas to pretty much use it as chemical weapons on people in Iraq. And we can see right now where they're going with this. The chlorine with Assad, maybe he gave it to them, and the Islamic State is now using it on people. And we can see they're pushing this really, really hard. Now, IBM is out there, and they are posting a huge, huge warning about banking Trojans in enterprise attacks. And they're saying that advanced actors do not have to focus their attention directly on the banking systems. What they can do is they can spread the malware across to many, many PCs and have them infiltrate the bank by sending emails back and forth from these infected PCs, keep them dormant until they actually need them and call upon them inside the network of the banks. And they're saying that these advanced actors have already done this, and there's a huge warning going out right now. Now, of course, we know that the United States central bankers have been using Russia, saying that they have planted malware and they are preparing to do something either on the power grid or the financial institutions. And we have to remember, the NASDAQ, the BAT system, and the stock exchange all have kill switches now, just in case the markets come down out of nowhere. And they can stop it at any point. And they've done this on purpose because they realize when they push this false flag event forward to show that Russia brought down the economy, they want to stop it at a certain point, they want to reevaluate it, and then all of a sudden tell you that, yes, the Fed is going to help out, Russia brought down our economy, or the Islamic State, or Syria. Whoever they want to point it to, point the finger at, this is what they're going to do. Right now it looks like it's going to be Russia. And they're going to say, well, the Fed's going to boost the stimulus right now because of what Russia did. And we can see they are definitely making sure they are prepared for all of this because they need to make everyone believe that this is actually happening. And of course, the banks will be closed down. There'll be bail-in documents. There'll be capital controls. Now, it seems like they're getting their stories, their agendas a little mixed up right now because we know the borders are completely open in the south. And, of course, everyone's reporting that terrorists are coming over these borders, and DHS is saying that, no, we have no knowledge whatsoever that there are terrorists in the United States, and they're not coming over the borders because we know that for a fact. But if the borders are open, how do you know this? And we can see their agenda to bring illegals over and to fight terrorism, they're starting to conflict right now, and they're really not making sense. So we have two different agendas going on right now, and the Department of Homeland Security is trying to make up stories to cover both of them. And right now the Homeland Security is out there saying we can't stop the Islamic State from coming into the U.S., and it just gets more and more confusing as time goes on. But there's another report out there saying that Al-Qaeda in Pakistan has stole a naval ship, and it looks like they're targeting U.S. vessels and firing missiles at the United States. Now, of course, these are the tribes rising up in Pakistan. This is not the terrorists. Again, they call the people of these countries terrorists because it makes it easier, because Congress has passed a law where the United States can go after anyone that is named Al-Qaeda, and this is what they're doing right now. There is another bill in Congress where it amends this, where it says the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, or any other terrorist group. So we can see right now the tribes are fighting the United States, and they're firing upon the vessels. And if this is actually true or not, because this could be just propaganda to say, hey, look, we need to go back into Pakistan, we need to go into Yemen, we need to go into Libya, we need to go into Iraq, we need to go into Syria, and this is all they're doing. They're using a lot of propaganda to convince you that terrorism is all over the place because they are losing control in the Middle East. The actual people of these countries are rising up, and of course they're calling them Al-Qaeda. They're telling us they're Islamic State cells inside of Lebanon, just sleeping and ready to attack, and they need to do this. And eventually what's going to happen, everything's going to be covered by the Islamic State. They're going to say they're in every single one of these countries, and the United States has the right to go into every one of these countries. Now, it looks like they're using more propaganda out there, saying the Islamic State, they have this online forum, and they're saying that ISIS is urging the lone wolves right now to ramp up their bomb attacks in New York City, at Times Square, in Vegas, and they're continually calling out and saying that these lone wolf groups are going to do this. Now, we knew about these lone wolf groups a long time ago. I mentioned them in reports way back, saying that, yes, there are lone wolf groups inside the United States. They can't track them. They're bomb makers. And here we are once again talking about the same thing, but this time it's ready to go live. And of course, it's not the Islamic State. What they're doing right now is they are setting up the false flag event, and they're waiting for the green light to go because they need to get this started. The economies are completely tumbling and falling apart, and they need to push the agenda very hard right now to get war started, because otherwise the American people are going to be looking at the United States central bankers, and they will point to them and say, listen, everything you did didn't work, and you collapsed our economy. Now we don't have jobs. The dollar is worth nothing, and we need a replacement of government. We need to kick the central bank out of here, and they are fearful of this. They do not want this to happen, and this is why they've been using all this propaganda, and this is why they've been preparing this false flag event, because they need to point this at another country, another group, and tell you that we are in a wartime economy. Of course things are bad. They're the ones who brought down the economy, and this is why we're going to war. And this is the point in time where the American people need to step up, go to Washington in the millions, and sit there and say, we are not going to war. Our children, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, we will not fight for the central bankers. And this, at this point, this is when we really need to make a stand and go there and stand up for our rights. Now, it looks like, of course, everyone has, maybe not everyone has seen it, but there is another video out by the Islamic State, and it's very Hollywood-esque, where they're showing, bombings and things like that, and they are threatening to target the White House and kill U.S. troops in a new, slickly made video response to Obama's campaign to degrade and destroy the organization. And, of course, they are doing this on purpose. They want everyone to see it. They want you to know that the Islamic State is going to come here. Now, of course, why would they publicize all of this and use such incredible video footage and movies to make their point? It makes no sense whatsoever. A real terrorist group does it in secret. They don't let you know what they're doing, and they do it, and then afterwards they tell you, yes, we were responsible. They don't publicize it in movie previews, online forums, social media. It is absolutely ridiculous. But the point from all of this is that you need to be prepared, because we know the government, the officials, they will resort, the central bankers will resort to doing something here to convince you that we need to go to war. Now, if the lights go out, you need to be prepared with supplies. You need batteries. You make sure you have weapons. Make sure you have toiletries, and, of course, food and water. And we have to understand, when the economy starts falling apart, the value of the dollar is going to decrease. Things are going to get much more expensive, and this is why you need to keep a lot of these supplies. And to protect your wealth, I do it by purchasing precious metals, silver and gold. That is what I do. And I do not sell it whatsoever. I have no links or anything to gold or silver. I am just telling you this is what I do to protect my wealth. I do believe that this definitely will protect you. I am hoping that gold and silver continually drop, because to me it is on sale. This is the time to buy it, because when you see the price of gold and silver going up 100, 200, 300, it is already too late, because everyone will be jumping in. It's almost like the real estate market. When the real estate market is hitting all-time new highs, everyone gets in. When it starts coming and starts imploding, nobody buys. This is the time to buy. Wait for the precious metals. As you see it come down, buy a little bit more. If you can't afford gold, go with silver. I mean, what is it, like $18, $19 an ounce? Pick up a little bit each time. That's all you have to do. And while everyone else is running around trying to get food, trying to do things, because as we know, the collapse will be covered up. it will not be stopped, and the value of the dollar will continually sink, 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 and this will make things very expensive. People are going to lose jobs. Remember back to 2008 when you saw people leaving the office with boxes, and you heard so many people being laid off. I was laid off in 2008 at the same exact time. I didn't know what I was going to do. And a lot of people are going to be out there saying, whoa, what just happened here? I just had a job. Everyone told me we were in a recovery, and now I'm being laid off. And we can see how this is creeping up on us, and this is why you need to be prepared. You need to protect your family. You need to protect your wealth. While everyone else is scrambling for things, you have everything you need. Hey, if you can help other people, that would be great. If you have friends that really don't believe now, store a little bit more for them. This is what I've been doing. Of course, I can't help everyone, but those in particular who kind of listen to me, but don't really listen, I make sure that I still have something. I don't want to tell them like, I told you so, you're out in the cold. I'd like to help their families. I have kids, they have kids, their families, they're part of the same neighborhood, and this is what everyone should be doing. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.